I've been doing NaNoWriMo almost every year since I was 14. That's been so many years that I don't want to tell you how many years it's been. I've won at least 5 times that I can remember, possibly more. And I think I've lost at least that many times, if not more. Some years I've gotten over the goal. The year before last year I won. The year before last, I was within like 2,000 words of the goal, and I'm still counting that as a win because it's fucking close enough. But as an experienced NaNoWriMo veteran, I wanted to offer some tips if this is your first or second Nano, or if you failed last year and are looking to try again. My first tip is not to write something that you feel like you can't fail at. If you are trying to write something perfectly or are going to get upset if things start going a little bit wonky because this is your masterpiece or you feel just like really emotionally invested in this story, you're going to have a hard time. You are going to collapse into a ball of anxiety and not be able to finish anything for 3 years. Probably, I don't know. I had this experience of trying to write this novel that I wanted to be really good. I had been writing recreationally for many years, and I had finished several books, but I'd never really made an effort to get anything published, and I wanted this to be my big debut. It was going to be kind of dark academia and library vibes. It was going to be haunted. There was going to be like this mysterious book that was making people do things. There was like a big twist at the end. And I was so concerned with making it right and making it good and getting upset with what was coming out of my head and that it wasn't like this perfect imagined thing that I got stuck in that novel for a really long time and couldn't get out of it. I still haven't finished that thing. I may never at this point. It's in a drawer, ready for me to come back to it when I can get to it. But don't be me. Don't do that to yourself. It's great to be excited about your idea, but don't feel anxious about getting it right the first time. This isn't a tip for anyone, so take it or leave it. But if you were pantsing it last year and you struggled or you had a kind of a brief outline, kind of know where you were going, but still struggled with momentum, having a really in-depth outline can help you. That's not to say this is a Bible and that you can't diverge from it at any point, but having an in-depth chapter outline that outlines, particularly what I find helpful is less than, of course I do the cue card thing where I have the scene, but then I like to go in and talk about what my main character wants out of the scene, what she needs out of the scene, what the outcome is. So I know kind of the roadmap of the scene itself. And that helps me particularly to catch some plot holes that are coming up while I'm editing or while I'm outlining. If I can catch them while I'm outlining, that means I don't have to spend 20,000 words rewriting it, which is helpful. As someone who's on their 4th rewrite of their current novel, just getting it right the first time helps. And you are obviously not going to follow it completely. You're going to realize that there are plot holes halfway through anyway, but if you can spot some of the bigger mistakes earlier, that can help you, as well as if that part doesn't work for you, going in and having 2 minutes before your writing session when you're actually getting down to write the scene and kind of pre-writing it, as in they walk into a bar, they sit down at the counter, they order this drink, they start the conversation like this, they end the conversation like this. This is how the bar fight happens, this is how they get outside. Just bullet points, pre-writing it, and then when you get to writing the scene, it just flows because you know exactly where you're headed and you don't have to stop to think about what you're going to do next. And this is particularly helpful if you are really on a time crunch, if you're at school, if you have a really busy week at work, if you're a parent or something, and you only have an hour a day to write, you can pre-write and pre-outline all of these scenes. And then when you get to sit down, it makes it a little more efficient. Plan for the second week to be just a complete grind. The first week is you're all on that excitement momentum of this fresh project and Nano has started and it's super exciting. And then the second week hits and you're like, oh dear God. 1,600 words a day is a lot, actually. Especially if you're trying to do more than that. and get like a full 80K or 100K draft. It's a lot. It's more than most professional writers write per day, and you ain't a professional, probably. So just know that the second week is going to suck, and first of all, make some time for it, specifically schedule in some time, but also find ways to motivate yourself. If you can make it through to the halfway mark, you get X prize or like X snack or whatever the case may be. I find that's helpful for me. Make daily realistic word count goals that account for the fact that you are not going to be writing the same amount every day. Usually I plan to write extra during the first week when I have that momentum, so that on the later weeks when I'm kind of slowing a bit, or if I have like a sick day, or if I'm just super busy at work and I just can't get to it, or if I'm just like not having a good mental health day, I can only write a little bit, or I can skip that day and I'm fine. And it helps if you can kind of plan for that in advance, even if you don't specifically like have dates where you're not going to be writing. I know that it falls in American Thanksgiving, so if you know that you're going to be like away with family on those days, plan to only write a little bit on those days and then compensate in other ways. It helps to have a little bit of a plan and understanding, give yourself grace, particularly during the last couple of weeks when you're just tired and you just want it to end. If you get stuck, just remember that you don't have to write the story in order. You can write it in any order that you want to, particularly if you have a good outline. You can always come back to something if you find yourself getting stuck, even on the second draft. Sometimes it helps if you're just like really excited for another scene, particularly on a day that you just don't fucking feel like it, that you can go to and that will give you a little bit of momentum. Join some of the writer groups. It can be a little difficult, particularly if this isn't your very first project, to find writers who are at your skill level. I find, as someone who's more experienced, that NaNoWriMo is definitely for people who are writing their first or their second book. So I find I'm not getting as much out of the resources anymore because I've done this so many times, but it's really helpful to join a group that you feel is on a similar level, who is writing in a similar genre, so that you can kind of bounce ideas off each other. I will say it's better to join with a slightly larger group at first because so many people will drop out and dwindle as things kind of get going. So you want to kind of have a buffer amount of people. You might end up with a very small group by the end, but go to the forums, go interact with people. It's fine. They're not that scary, I promise. Gamify it as much as possible. I am a sucker for word crawls. There's something about like completing a task and moving through a story that it just does something to my brain chemistry that makes me think that I can do it. I particularly love the D&D word crawl. It is a fucking monster. It is a different word crawl every day that will get you to your word count, and if you're a nerd or someone who really likes video games and likes having that gamified point system kind of story within a story meta thing going on, I'd highly recommend it. This is also fun if you're just having a little bit of trouble on a particular day. I could recommend, I have 2 word crawls that I've written myself. One is the haunted house word crawl, which is a beast. I really like it. It's super fun. And then I also have another word crawl for mental health days when I just don't fucking want to. It's like 20 words at a time, 10 words at a time, 100 words at a time, very tiny amounts that eventually like get me going, which is my magical cafe crawl. So I will link those both down below. You should definitely try it. You should definitely try out the D&D crawl. There's Harry Potter crawls, there's supernatural crawls, there's crawls for basically every big fandom. I recommend trying it if you haven't. So yeah, those are my tips. I will be participating this year. I will put my username for Nano down below so you can friend me. Please can friend me. Let me know in the comments what your hot tips are, if you've done this before, if this is your first time, and good luck, and I'll see you in November.